Welcome to episode 76, Major Arcana, part 3.
Join us as we discuss two separate cards. The first being the Magician,
which is manifestation, beginnings, action, as above, so below, and Temperance,
which is about joining disparate elements in a slow, controlled, moderated process in order to create something harmonious, beautiful, and new.
Stay tuned. Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in everybody and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
races,
and backgrounds.
With a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true, our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Welcome to episode 76, Major Arcana,
part 3.
So I should offer a caveat to begin with, that we are recording this over Zoom. So there may be a stutter here and there because I don't think my internet is the best. I'm down at the Gulf Coast. I'm in Galveston in a wonderful little resort down here for Thanksgiving. And it's lovely, except the internet is kind of dodgy.
Well, I'm excited to jump into this next deep dive into two major Arcana cards from our tarot decks. Today, we will be talking about the Magician and Temperance, two cards that we find are shiny.
Well, we'll talk about that in a moment. But before we do that, let's see where we are. I mean, I just said where I am physically, but let's just see where we are mentally, emotionally, whatever. Would you like to start or shall I?
I'll start.
Okay.
So at the beginning of the year, I do a tarot pull at the beginning of our calendar year. And you and I have shared on a lot of different episodes about how we define the year. And because of our jobs, we oftentimes use the academic year. But this is something I do on the calendar year. And I also think it's funny that we also do things like on a magical year as well. Just
I do so. I love that.
But as far as the calendar year goes, I do a pull for one card for each month. I do my year card in the center, which I think on our first tarot episode, we discussed how to find your year card using numbers. Is that right?
We did. I'm pretty sure we did. Yes.
That was on our first one. And I put that card in the center, and then I do January, February, all the way around clockwise, one card per month. And so in my journal, I normally cut out and I put my tarot card in my journal and paste it in there. And then I keep an eye on that as I navigate my year. Well, my card for November is the Tower. And that's the card that you and I discussed in the last tarot in our Major Arcana episode number 2. So in case our listeners are interested in that, they can go back and find that. But it's just interesting to me because that card is my least favorite card. And my brain is so split. Half of my brain is like, there are no bad cards. There are only cards that offer learning and growth opportunities. And then the other half of my brain is like, oh my God, it's the Tower card. Just hide for a month. Just go away, So I just wanted to share that, that like how long I've worked with tarot. Like I am a human and I have this human experience of feeling these feelings and like working magically with the card. And I actually have some ideas on what I really think is happening here with my tarot card of the Tower for November is, you actually spoke of it on that last episode that we did about the Tower card, about how we get all these opportunities to address the issues that are causing the Tower to be unstable. And And since last summer, I recommitted I got a new therapist, and I've really been doing a lot of deep work. And I really am hoping, I think that I did a lot of work, and I think that perhaps me seeing that tower card in November helped me to make some changes, some major changes to avoid that tower collapse. So I'm hoping that when I pulled the cards in January of last year, the tower card was there, but that I maybe have done some work to keep that tower from collapsing and to keep me from being the person that dives out of the tower and lands on the pointy rocks. So any thoughts?
Well, yeah, cool. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that, because I love how we're both. Well, I'm going to speak for both of us. I think we're both on this path of learning and growth and transformation, and recognizing that, you know, all of these things that come at us are generally lessons. And when you get the tower card, it's like, ah!
Yes.
And you have to sit in that for a moment, and then you take a deep breath and say, okay, so let's look at the lesson that's to be learned here. But that first initial, thank you for sharing that. You know, like you said, you're human. I knew that before, but, you know, thank you for reiterating that. And I'm wondering, so one of the things that occurred to me as you were talking about this is that in this case, because you have committed to so much growth, you know, you like in therapy, et cetera, that maybe the tower is less like a warning, and more, or maybe it's a warning, but it's more like, okay, let's stop and see what you know, maybe this is an opportunity for you to take stock of what you've done so far to kind of keep from having like an extreme tower moment, because you knew it was coming, right? Because you saw the card back in January. So instead of it being a warning, which it might have been in January, now maybe it's okay, we warned you in January. Where are you now, my friend? And so
you could see, like, you kind of lean to the side and like propped your chin up on the back side of your palm. Like, where are you, my friend? And that is the energy I feel with tarot sometimes, is like, yeah, so what's going on? You know?
Yes. So this is, thank you for sharing, particularly because this is our tarot episode, one of our tarot episodes. So, oh yeah. And yeah, go ahead.
I think I will feel a sigh of relief at the end of the month. If a true tower moment doesn't happen, I think I will feel a sigh of relief. And I also think that I really do think that this is what you just said is a good encapsulation of the meaning of the card for me now.
And this is and one thing that you might consider doing between now and the end of the month, which is I guess a week from, where are we? We're recording this the day before Thanksgiving, so like a week and change. That maybe every day you can just say, okay, so what have I done in the past 9 months or 10 months or 11 months, I guess, because I can count. What have I done in the past 11 months to work my way through this kind of tower energy? Where am I today? Where am I in the next day? Where am I today? You know, so it's a thought.
Thank you. I just even feel relief voicing it. I haven't really talked to anybody about it.
Well, going through my tower year, some of these thoughts. So I'm just offering you some of the things that have occurred to me over the course of the past few months. So,
well, would you like to check in a little bit about your tower year?
Yeah, actually, my check-in actually is not about tower, but it is kind of tower. That didn't make any sort of sense, but anyway, let me just continue on and you'll see what I mean. My check-in really is about grief. As I mentioned, I believe in our last episode or the episode before that, I've had some, I was going to have some trees removed. And I had gotten the estimate and everything, and the people came. They were phenomenal. If you ever need someone to do your tree work, I have a great recommendation for you. Worth every penny. They did incredible work. They left a couple of straw wrappers, but you know, and a couple of chicken bones that my dog found. But whatever. Anyway, except for that though, they were lovely. Really lovely people, and did really, really great, efficient work. Cleaned up beautifully after themselves. Everything. And then I sat on my back porch, and I had such an overwhelming sense of grief and loss. I mentioned in that, I think I mentioned in our last episode, just how much the trees it meant to me. It was a major part of our decision about buying the house. But I hadn't done a whole lot of stuff out there. I kind of kept things up. But when the pandemic hit, I spent a lot of time on that back porch. Just me sitting there kind of, not even communing. I mean, communing, but not sitting out there saying, I shall commune, just sitting out there and just absorbing. And I mentioned there was a Texas spiny lizard that would kind of sit in sun, and we would just kind of just enjoy ourselves out there. And so 3 of those trees that I had spent so much time with over the past 3 years are gone. And there's actually like kind of like almost a hole in my soul, because we've talked about how we both like to do things in nature and trees and rocks and wood and stuff. And I knew that, and I didn't realize how much that it meant to me until I sat there, and it's like almost like teeth missing, when these gaping holes in the landscape. And I mean, to be a little more mundane, and I see a lot more of the neighbor behind my alley than I wanted to. So that's an issue too. But yeah, so I'm kind of working my way through, and I don't want to say working my way through grief. I'm just kind of sitting with a lot of grief around that. And I'm also going to take advantage of having more sun out there, because I mentioned I wanted to put in a pollinator garden, and that's going to be a great opportunity to do that. And I'm grieving. So that's kind of where I'm sitting right now. Right now, not literally at this moment, because I'm in Galveston, where we've talked about my love affair with water and the ocean. And so I get to walk. In fact, when we're done here, I'm going to go take a nice long walk, a couple of hours, and because we're starting to be in training, so to get to do a walk by the water, and hopefully that'll kind of help balance some of the grief I feel in the earth part of my soul, so anyway, that's where I am. Thank you for this opportunity to share.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's so relatable and so real.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I think you've had a couple of trees removed too over the past few years. And
yeah, this past year I had 2. It's the weather change, and of course I could talk a lot about my feelings about climate change and all that stuff, but it's really been hitting San Antonio hard and hitting nature here hard. So
So yeah. So anyway, that's what we're going through right now. That's what I'm going through. And I want to say that I feel like this grief is real super, super healthy. It's just a natural reaction to change and transformation that that's allowing me to work through a bunch of issues, and it makes me sad.
Mm-hmm.
So, but speaking of sad, what else? So as we were talking, moving into our episode now, as we were talking about, okay, which cards will we do? Because last time, I think the last few times we did either cards that were meaningful. I think I chose my year card and my my life card. And I think you did something similar, or we picked cards that we liked. And it turned out it was like cards that were really like, whoa, for us. And then cards that, that were much more layered responses to. And so we said, when we were talking about this time, let's pick bright and shiny cards that are bright and shiny for us. So this is for our listeners. So I go in, and you had started an outline, and I put in my card, which is going to be the magician. And you said, I think you texted me and said, yeah, I'm getting ready to go in and do some work on it. And so I went in later, and I looked, and I saw what card did I see, Leilani?
The death card. Listen, I think death is bright and shiny in some way.
And I was like, and I think I put a comment on, because we do this on Google Docs. I put a comment in there saying, wow, you're intense with the Google eyes. Okay, so you ended up not doing that card, but would you care to share a little bit of your process?
Yeah, so I had originally pulled, this is like real witch humor right here, I think. I had originally, because I think death is bright and shiny in some ways, but I had originally decided on Temperance and had all the information for that, but I kept getting messages from the universe about the death card, even to where when I picked up my tarot stuff to go update stuff on Temperance, and I dropped it and the death card fell out.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. And so then I was like, okay, fine. I think death is bright and sparkly. Like that was our thing, is like pick a bright and shiny card. And so I was like, death is shiny in a different way. Like I can get down with that.
Okay.
So then I started to do that. And then I just decided to not. So there will be plenty of time for death at another time. But then I'm just going to take it as insight into my own life and keep an eye out for that. And I'm just holding the Tower card in one hand and then this death card in the other hand as we approach Thanksgiving. So this is, to me, what it means to be a witch in some way.
Oh my gosh. I was like, okay, I can roll with this, but wow, like these are layers of you I haven't seen before. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I can't. I just can't.
I mean, what is more bright and shiny than like the spot on your arm whenever you get a deep cut and then it heals over and it's that pink and it's, new skin, like there's a baby on the death card. So
I bow to you. I am humbled by your clarity and your ability to embrace that aspect of that, because I'm not there yet. I mean, I recognize the transformation, the change, and I'm still not feeling it. For me, I'm still not feeling it as bright and shiny. But thank you. And that's one of the reasons I love talking with you so much, is that you kind of make me like kind of tilt my world a little bit, like not even like 90, kind of like 37 degrees or something. So everything looks totally different when when it's a straight, it's not like totally right side or upside down. It's like, and so that really helps me to look at something in a totally new way. So I'm going to embrace that. Thank you.
Thank you. You do the same for me. And I think that is one of the reasons why I enjoy our talk. And one of the reasons why we started the podcast.
I think so too. And one of the reasons why we keep.
And I tossed I don't want to say I tossed. I gently moved the death card to the side and went back to Temperance. So that's what we'll be doing today, or what I'll be doing today. But
so maybe next time we'll do the death card and another card that might kind of bounce off of the death card.
Okay, I love that. Thank you. That actually feels really good to me, so that I can still do some work with the death card, since it keeps literally popping out at me. Okay,
yeah. I just you should have just seen my face when I went to look at the Google outline. I was like, okay, but I was willing to go with it. Okay, but I like, and the beauty of this is that I think I've done a little bit of work, not the bright and shiny work that you've done with death, but Temperance. Did we say what your card was? Did we say your card was Temperance?
Yeah, Temperance.
I've done nothing with Temperance. It's so funny. I think it might have come up in all of my spreads over the past 2 years. It may have come up once. It definitely has not come up in my when I dedicated to this new deck. So it hasn't come up this year at all. So this is an opportunity, and I'm wondering why that is. So maybe our discussion will give me some insight as to why that's not. I have an idea, but okay. Wow. So, okay. And I think we said that mine is the Magician. Who'd like? We never said. Oh, I'll start. Okay. All righty. So just to remind everyone, I'm dedicated this year to the Syrian Starseed deck. So that's one of the cards that I have, but a deck that has been super powerful for me as well, and that I have been using a lot is the Thoth deck. So when I talk about them, I'm going to kind of describe them both. Okay, so I am going to be discussing the Magician, and I think a number of people who have worked with the magician are familiar with the traditional, the rider-waite Coleman Smith version. I say Coleman Smith in there because she was the artist and she doesn't get any credit. So rider-waite Pamela Coleman Smith. And that's where you have the magician with one hand pointing towards the sky, the other one's pointing down to the earth, and a lot of people interpret that as above, so below. The spiritual and the physical realms. And then in front of the magician is a table that has the wand, the pentacle, the sword, and a cup, representing the four suits of the minor arcana, fire, earth, air, and water. And I think it's Aleister Crowley writes, which lie like counters before the adept, and he adapts them as he wills. I got some quotes from him. And then in the magician's right hand in the Rider-Waite Smith deck, he holds a double-ended white wand, which kind of echoes the meaning of his hands, the conduit between the spiritual and the physical. And his robe is white with a red mantle over it, and the white standing for purity and the red standing for willpower and passion. And in front of the table, and actually around the frame of the card also, is a garden of roses and lilies. And that's supposed to represent, theoretically, the magician's ability to cultivate and fulfill his or her potential. And that's one of the decks that you play with, right? What do you have any thoughts about that one?
Yeah, that is one of the decks that I started with the Rider-Waite. Something really interesting about the image of the magician card is oftentimes it's the one that I've seen on top, like on the box of the deck, or it's certainly on the cover of books. It's kind of ubiquitous in that sense, but I think it's really meaningful. Also, something that you didn't mention that I think is really interesting is the infinity symbol.
Yes.
Over the head, which shows up on a number of cards, like in the strength card and some other cards in the Rider-Waite Coleman Smith. I like that you. By the way, thank you for adding her in. I had never known about her, and I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she did, and she actually influenced a lot of the symbolism. The painting's the artist's gonna do that anyway. But I don't know how much they discussed, but she actually convinced him to have. Oh wait, I might be confusing her with Lady Frida Harris. I can't remember, but there's two artists who have done tarot decks, and one of them I know had a lot of input into the symbolism, and actually might have talked the author around to their ideas. So like you say, it's ubiquitous. People, even people who don't know tarot, I think have seen that card, even if they don't, understand or recognize it or whatever. And what I find interesting about this, and to me, this is a part of the symbolism, is that, as we think of if we think of the major arcana as the Fool's Journey, and we start with the Fool, the very next card is the Magician. And to me, the Magician, so there's people often talk about the power of the magician and their magic, their manifestation, their skill, their power, the fact that they're kind of this conduit between thought and action, and bringing thought into reality. So the manifestation, bringing the spiritual into the physical realms, and this conscious awareness of this ability to do that. And that's great. But it's so early in the Fool's Journey. To me, the Magician is Fool 2.0, there's still this element of beginning, this element of newness and focused intention that actually, so the Fool blindly steps off the cliff, assuming, guessing, thinking that maybe something's going to happen to make sure that he doesn't die or they don't die. And the Magician recognizes that and actually builds the wings on the way down, and so that to me is what the Magician is. But still, a lot of the things I've read make the magician to be seems like the magician is further down the journey. And the aspect of it that I am really delving into right now is that idea of just being a step ahead, a step further than the fool.
Yeah, the magician to me reminds me of when I get so like when I first got into a new hobby and I go out and I buy all the things that I need.
Yes.
And I've done the research so I know how to do the thing and I have everything I need to do the thing and I can do the thing, but I'm still learning and I'm still new. You know, I'm not all the way down that journey where it's, you know, where it's like muscle memory and embedded in who I am. Like I'm capable and I'm able and I have what I need and it's all laid out right here in front of me and I'm knowledgeable, but I'm not experienced.
Ooh, the experience is the yeah. The doing. The doing. So we get the trust from the fool, and then we get the actual, you know, in the trench doing in the magician.
And as somebody who like everything I just said is like very much a part of my journey in a lot of different ways. But I just find the image of the magician standing before that table with all of the suits laid out in front of the magician on the table, the chalice and the pentacle and the sword and the wand are laying there. And there's been so many times in my life where I've laid things out literally or metaphorically and been like, okay, I have what I need. I know what I'm doing, kind of, mostly in theory. Okay. You know?
Yeah.
But it's
yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, I love that idea that, you know, it's like, okay, you've gathered all the tools and harnessing magician energy to take that next step. Well, just the next step on the journey, right? Oh, I love that. I love that. So and that actually takes us nicely into the Syrian Starseed deck, because I don't know if you can see this. Let me make it bigger just so we can, let me stop. Okay, so you can see it better. Yeah. So in the Syrian Starseed deck, it's the indigo. And you know, it's so funny. When the term first started circulating, I was not where I am now in my journey. And I just thought, what is that? You know, that hoo-has. You know, who makes this crap up? You know, these are kids who just need some discipline. And so the whole idea, for those of you who may not know, the idea started circulating in the 80s, I think. It maybe before, but it became popular in the 80s and 90s. And the indigo is basically a generation of children that people recognized as star seeds. So these were children who were born during this period that were not bound by some of the by the karmic debts, et cetera, of people who are whose lineage is Earth. Okay, and so they're considered to be highly evolved souls that have come into this life with a deep sense of their purpose and who they are. And so these would be the real like kind of hippie like alternative lifestyle artists. People, and in many cases, these were people who were just not handling the rules of the real world, right? Which was my judgment, you know. So, and now I recognize, yeah, you were an idiot. I was an idiot, but so the indigo as the magician. So this is what I love about it. It's a child, and so just describing, it's a child with these incredibly vivid blue eyes. And just like a simple kind of bowl haircut, but he's I say he, but I don't know. The child is appearing out of the cosmos, just kind of like they're walking out of the clouds and the stars, and their eyes are like a strange color blue that you don't often see in eyes. They're more like water, and some people call it the waters of Gaia. And they're holding in their hand like a gift, this perfectly faceted crystal, quartz crystal. And the idea of it being kind of, it's a gift to the world of showing them this view of this other world that we could be. And the idea of the quartz being that it can store, it magnifies, it transmits energy, and people think thought. And so this is the magician as this gift to us. The indigo children are considered to be gifts to us, that we're treating kind of crappily because a lot of judgment. But this wonderful being who is giving us an opportunity to move ahead on our spiritual journey. Should we take it?
I really see that connection to the magician, being that bridge and harnessing that power as above and so below, holding both of those things, being a child, being an indigo child, but being a child of this world at the same time. To work with both, to move us forward in that journey.
Yeah, totally. And then just really quickly, just to show you the other deck. So with the Thoth deck, let me know if you need me to make it bigger. Is good? Okay, wait. Okay, there we go. And so in the Thoth, the card is called the Magus or the Magus, depending on who says it. And it's a person who has who's known in alchemical circles as Hermes Trismegistus. And it's a lot of these are based on kind of these Greco Egyptian traditions and like the mystical traditions like the Kabbalah. And so it's the energy of the Magus is on path 12 of the Kabbalah, which is called the intelligence of transparency. And the idea that this being allows light to pass through so that objects behind can be distinctly seen. And we see that in that crystal in the Syrian starseed deck, where we're seeing into another world. And so like the rider-waite smith, you can see that the hands are connecting the above and below. They're a little bit more gentle. They're not as straight, but the hands are connecting the above and below. And the Magus acts as a channel for that energy. And then another aspect of it that I don't know is really clear is that the being is androgynous. So it's the being is naked, and like the Fool has a combination of masculine and feminine features. I don't know if you remember that from our discussion of the Fool before, but we also have the elements there in surrounding the body of the Magus. We have the disc, which would be the pentacles, the censer, which would be okay, help me. The earth.
The disc is earth.
The censer is fire. The fire. It's like, what? The censer is fire. The cup, which is water, and the dagger, which is air. And then we also see a winged egg, also surrounding that the body, that represents in a number of traditions spirit. And so this idea of manifestation, this nothingness out of which everything is made. So a couple of other symbols that we can see up near the top is the stylus and scroll, which are the tools of Thoth, who was, the legend said, created hieroglyphs and was a scribe. And then at the top of the head, and this kind of reflects what you were saying with the rider-waite smith deck, is we have the caduceus. It's basically, it's really a winged phallus, right? So it's the thing with the snakes going around it, but it has wings at the top. And at the top in the circle, we have the eye of, I don't know if you can see that. The top, the circle, we have the eye of Horus. We have a dove, which is, in a lot of traditions, not just Christian traditions, the spirit descending into creation. And this idea of this being really sexually complete, so androgynous, having everything that is needed, again, having all the tools for creation. And then we also have an infinity. So right at the top, I don't know if you can see that, we also have the infinity shape that you had mentioned, that's made out of the snakes. So that whole idea of being able to manifest creation.
So I really
I
think strong ties between all of these cards. I mean, they're different. It's like different facets of the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's an incredibly powerful card, and I just about a month ago put it on my, I have that little altar in my craft room. I put that's my icon is the Magus from the Toth deck, because I don't want to use the Syrian Starseed because that's the deck I'm pulling from. So but I use the Magus from the Toth deck as my on my altar. And drawing that energy, allowing that energy to help and guide and et cetera me, and maybe help me focus when I'm trying to meditate. So and one last thing, and then I'm sorry, one last thing, and then one of the things I love about it is that it's the beginning of the journey, and it just gives me hope that that even though I may feel as if I make mistakes or I'm falling off, et cetera, I can always, I have the tools. I just need to, I have the tools, and I just choose then that I'm going to maybe take a few steps back and kind of, recapture that energy and then go forward again.
Ooh, so true. I'm feeling that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we already shared a little bit about the rider-waite Smith deck,
Mm-hmm.
and by the way, I'm deciding that's where I'm gonna include her name there.
Rider-Waite Smith, Coleman
Yes.
Smith. I think she might be Coleman Smith because her name, and then she got married or whatever.
Rider-Waite Coleman Smith.
Mm-hmm.
The Modern Witch deck is the one that I'm currently reading from, and I shared in a previous episode that I used to work exclusively with that other deck, but it was you said it very well when I was like, it's just and I don't remember exactly what you said, but it's just, I find it to be really racist and classist and sexist, and it just was too much and too distracting for me. So I switched to the Modern Witch, and I really like it. But if our listeners would be interested in just pulling up an image of the Rider-Waite Coleman Smith deck and then the Modern Witch deck, it's basically exactly the same thing, but I think better.
Well, so just so you know, I will be putting links to pictures of our cards in the show notes. So I've done that for the past few episodes. So if you've missed that and you really want to get a chance to just quickly click on it, so you don't have to do the search, it'll be in the show notes. Please carry on. Sorry.
Thank you for doing that. So the Modern Witch, it's for when I look at it, I see what looks like a powerful Black woman with space buns. That's the buns on the top of the head, the two buns on the top of the head. And she looks knowledgeable and curious, but everything is exactly the same, except that she's there instead of the white, somewhat androgynous magician figure. And then the other difference that I see is that instead of a table, it's like a rocky ledge of a cave. But she's still standing there wearing the red robe, the white gown, the red robe, the infinity symbol above her head, holding that double-edged wand, the double-tipped wand, pointing up and pointing down. It's just a very similar image, but I think made better.
I like that. I like it. And one of the things when you talk about the space buns, I think of those as just another opportunity for her to channel energy, to absorb the energy from above and put it into her body, kind of and to transmute it kind of alchemically in her body.
I'll think about that the next time I wear space buns to a rave.
Oh yeah. I'm going to ask you to conduct a little bit of an experiment. Put your hair in the space buns and just try to be more aware throughout that period what how that might be different from the last. I don't know. It's hard. It's going to be hard to compare, but I would suggest that with your space buns, that you're probably like pulling in something. I'm not quite sure, but let me know. Let me know. I'd be interested in hearing like your response now that you're kind of aware of like some of the potential of those things.
Will do.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I'd love to hear about that. So, so that's the magician or the magus or magus or whoever again, there's these cards are so rich, and we should have said this earlier. We are not tarot experts. You probably figured that out already. We're just two women who have their own relationship. No, I'm a woman. You can speak for yourself. I'm a woman who knows just enough to probably be dangerous, and I've started to develop a relationship, and I'm just sharing my experience with you, with the listeners.
I think that I have real magician energy when it comes to tarot. I have the tools, I have the knowledge, and I have got some experience, but I'm definitely on that journey with them as the tools laid out in front of me on that table.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And what points that out to me is as we get to your card, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I know very little about that card. So I'm really excited I'm really excited that we're not talking about death, but I'm also really excited that I'm learning about this card that I know so little about. So you want to get us started?
Yes. So I selected and then deselected and reselected the Temperance card. And I do find it interesting that you and I have been working with tarot for a while. I've been working with it for over a decade, and I know you've been working with it for a while as well. And it's just interesting that I have cards that pop up frequently for me, and you have cards that pop up frequently for you, and they're different. The Temperance card is definitely one that is relatively reoccurring for me. It's actually the card that I drew out of the entire deck during that annular eclipse.
Whoa! Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And one of our friends that has been on the podcast before, the Pagan Feminist Astrologer, that's the name of her episode. She offered some questions for us to ask during the annular eclipse, and it was something along the lines of like, what information do I need now to help me on this journey forward? And that was the card that I pulled. So.
Wow. Oh, yay. Okay. Well, so tell us first a little bit, like, what does it look like and all that kind of stuff?
So the rider-waite Coleman-Smith Temperance has this androgynous angel standing with, that's the first thing I noticed. Very large wings. The wings are taking up about 2/3 of the left to right space. And the androgynous angel-like figure has 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on land. And this is commonly believed to represent the uniting these disparate elements, water and earth, like standing part of the way there and part of the way here, like this bridge between. There's a glowing halo around the head. In our one episode, we talked about the Hanged One having that glowing halo. That's another common element that's seen in the rider-waite Coleman-Smith imagery, and then it can be found in other decks that have referenced that. That halo is the angelic sacred enlightenment, the knowledge. Then in the back corner, there's a path winding up a mountain towards the sunrise. The path oftentimes represents like our life journey. And in this context, it's our life journey towards this sacred enlightenment. And on the rider-waite Coleman-Smith, you'll see a crown inside of the sun. And that's it's a little bit hard to see because I'm holding it up to the camera, but there's actually a crown in there. And the crown is oftentimes that symbol of like sacred or divine, almighty truth.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also another major image is this pouring from one chalice into the other, this infinite pouring of this liquid. It's frequently described as the water of life, and it's flowing from one chalice into the other, from like the sacred into the physical realm, or the spiritual realm into the mundane realm, like however we want to describe it. But there's an infinite pouring, and that is an image that I've seen in lots of cultures. You know, there's like Ishel, um,
Mm-hmm.
like pour, you know, like frequently, like it's a frequent divine image of like pouring from of a never ending pouring from a jug or a
Mm-hmm.
chalice. So that's a frequent symbol that I've seen. Um, and it like oftentimes evokes this thing of like uniting these things that are in two different worlds. So there's lots of these symbols of like uniting these things that are seemingly different, but that can be brought together.
Yeah, it's funny because when you see that, you, people did, I mean, before we had blenders and mixers and hand mixers and kitchen aids, that's how people mix things, right? They would have two different things and they pour a little bit of each into one, and then a little bit of the newly blended part into the original cup, and then they kept doing it until they felt as if you had equal amounts of each element in each cup, which and and that by doing so you actually change those two things from two things into one different thing, which is a very sacred process, right?
Yeah, it's like that's alchemy, right? When
Yeah,
we
well,
change.
exactly. And funny you should mention that because that's my card, which I'll talk about in a second. But that idea of you say my the you want to talk about the word itself?
Yeah, and this is, you know, I love words. I'm a bit of a language nut. So can you actually help me with the Latin pronunciation?
Mhm.
So it comes from the Latin, temperance comes from the Latin root,
Temperare.
and that means to moderate, to blend, or to mix harmoniously. And I think that really gets at the root of the meaning of this card, this blending, this moderation. You know, there's one foot in on the land, and then there's one foot in the water. And the one foot in the water is not like they didn't dive all the way into the deepest part of the ocean. You know, they're just standing with one foot partially in the water and then one foot on the land. You know, they didn't turn the chalice totally upside down and like, you know, fire hose the elixir of life onto the other cup. It's just a gentle pouring. They're moderating their pour into the other chalice.
That is so amazing to me because and this is and probably because the card has rarely come up for me, I haven't delved into it more deeply. But I was thinking of it as temperance, as like the women's temperance league, where those are the people, the women to the women temperance league. They were the ones who brought about prohibition. They brought the idea of tempering extremes, tempering drunkenness, tempering addiction, tempering. So I was thinking of it not as mixing, but I was thinking of it as not clamping down, but keeping something from being its fullest flower in some cases. I mean, in most cases, it's something that you don't want to flower. But so I was just thinking of it as and this just goes to show how with so many of these cards, one can think of a more restrictive symbolism or one can think of a more expansive one. And to be honest, I don't think I thought about it that much. So I probably just kind of bought into, the way we tend to use this word today, which is, no, let me take that back. The way I thought of the word, which was as a kind of restrictive, keeping something down, as opposed like, and then you hear the word tempering when, like if you're making a gravy or something, where you're introducing something cold into something hot, and you don't want the food to the gravy to separate. So you put a little bit of the hot, you take it and put it in another cup, and you put a little bit of each in there and blend it, and then blend that back into the original pot. And that's tempering too. And I'd forgotten about that.
I've never heard of that, but that makes sense because just like the fire hose example, if I used before, if you just dumped the cold just in directly, like it would cause it to separate, and that wouldn't be what you wanted. Yes. So because I'm gonna just validate kind of what you said. Like my only experience with the word temperance is my primary one was it's whenever you do something bad moderately so that it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That was my before tarot. That's what I'm bringing in. That's like that's my prior learning.
Yeah.
But then like you bring up the gravy. Something that I had learned was that back, like this is a while ago, but like back during the Roman times and before that, finding safe drinkable water was not always easy to do. And one way they would purify the water was to temper it with wine. So they would take wine and they would pour the water in, and that way the alcohol content in the wine would kill the bacteria in the water. And so that was how they tempered water. And that and I feel silly saying this, but like, just like you brought up the KitchenAid mixer, like, a lot of this is coming from this time period before where I just put my glass into my fridge and, it goes and fills up my, and I filter my water that I get from the tap, which I could drink from the tap, but, I filter it again, because that's available to me. But it was really sacred, this idea of using this wine to temper the water so that they had something to drink. Like that's a huge deal, and that is life-giving and life-saving, and it was and I would argue is a really sacred process.
Yeah. So what are some of the other associations that you'd like to share with us about this card?
So the card, the figure on the card is androgynous in the rider-waite Coleman Smith. And even with that said, there is a lot of feminine energy in this card, like things that would be considered or coded as feminine in some ways, like cooperation, harmony, receptivity, and creativity. It's also the 14th card in the deck, which is really significant because the 14th day of the moon cycle, starting at a full moon, if you go 14 days into the moon cycle, that is exactly halfway through that moon, that monthly moon cycle. And when we think about temperance, about uniting disparate things, coming together in that balanced, harmonious way, that makes a lot of sense to me, that it would be
totally
that midway. Also, another fun fact about this card is that at one point in time, if you trace back the lineage of the tarot deck, it used to be at one point called the Time was the name of the card.
Oh, huh.
And to me, that comes from this virtue of temperance being to wait. Not only is it about uniting these disparate things, like the mixing of the water and the wine, or like what you shared about, like with the gravy, or like standing with one foot in the water and one foot on earth, or even using heat to temper steel, that process of like extreme heat and then cooling it down with water. So we're going back and forth between these different temperatures and different elements. But it also has to do with the time, how long do you take? How the patience to sit with that process and allow it to unfold, these things around us to unfold, and to have that patience instead of, I'm going to make this happen right now. Like, you can't make steel be tempered right now. You have to.
It breaks.
Right. You have to be willing to sit. I have to be willing to sit and wait and allow that process to unfold in the time that it needs.
I love that. I need to work with this card a little bit. Maybe not. I don't know. But but you've given me such insight into this card that I had a really shallow view of what it could mean. And like I said, if it would have come up in a in a reading, then I would have delved into it more. But for some reason, maybe because I know so little about it, I've never called upon its wisdom. So thank you for sharing that for me. And I love, I think I told you, I read a lot of fantasy and urban fantasy, and there's one that's set in the major arcana. And so these various archetypes are actual physical people in this story. And so Temperance is a major figure with the other virtues. And so now I'm going to go back and reread that series again with this knowledge. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I speak of this as from the perspective of someone who has a lot of opportunity to learn from this card. There's a meme that I really love, and it's this guy, and he's like sitting smelling the roses, and this other guy is like walking past him really fast. And the guy says, "You really need to stop and smell the roses." And the guy looks at him, and then in the next frame, he's like smelling the roses, but he's not like gently sniffing them. He's like it looks like a vacuum, like vacuuming in all of the roses. And then in the next frame, he's like holding a trophy that says like #1 flower sniffer. And so I feel that in my life. Like if there's something, I'm a pretty intense person. And so I go like all in pretty intensely. And this card is real medicine for me in that it really calls for me to sit back. And just because I can be that obsessive doesn't mean that I need to be that obsessive or that intense. Sometimes maybe nothing needs to be done. And what I'm being called to do is to just sit and observe and notice. And sometimes it's about waiting, and sometimes it's about being open to that slow mixing process. And that to me is just a real learning edge for me instead of going from 0 to 100.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Totally.
Would you be willing to share what your decks look like? Because I'd be really interested. I haven't seen what the Temperance card looks like because I'm imagining they might have a really cool take on it.
So it's so funny that you say that. So with the Syrian Starseed deck, the card is called Alchemy. So, and if I just thought about it, I would have maybe gone there. But anyway, I think I've only pulled this card maybe once. Anyway, the card is called Alchemy, and it shows basically it's glass blowing. And so I don't know if you can see at the top where it's coming out of the pipe. And so this whole idea about this is that it's this magical process of glass blowing that's using the 4 elements. It's using like air because it's blowing the glass. The glass blower is blowing air, water to cool the glass, like tempering the glass, and then you have obviously the fire to melt the silicate, and then earth is the actual silicate that's being treated. So and behind it is this huge like flame like halo that's surrounding the globule of glass that's being blown. And the whole idea behind it is that this process, it's process, and that's an important part of it. And then there's a result out of it, but it's not. This card is about the process, and the whole idea with I've done a little bit of work with alchemy, just with the idea of alchemy for a number of reasons. And so there's this kind of mystical thing that alchemy is all about changing lead to gold, right? You might have heard that. But that was the coding that alchemists used because they were actually doing spiritual work, which particularly in the Christian period would have gotten them excommunicated, right? Or if at best excommunicated. So they would use this type of lingo to hide, to cover, to obscure the fact that what they were really talking about was transmuting the physical body into the spiritual light body of the enlightened being. And so that's pretty amazing. And that's what the card represents, is like a physical representation of what's going on of what the alchemists are trying to do spiritually. So, and then really quickly in my Thoth deck, it kind of mirrors that imagery. So you have it's like a two-faced being, and one hand is two, like kind of like part, like half heads or something, and then the rest of it's like a regular body, but a big, massive body holding chalices and pouring the two. Well, actually, no, one's holding a chalice and one's holding flame, and they're both going into a larger basin at the bottom that's being held by a lion and a phoenix. And so again, it's about the process of mixing these disparate energies, and of course surrounded by this huge gold frame that's kind of halo like, and the one face is dark or blue, and that side's hand is white, and then the other side's face is white, and that hand is blue. And there's this flames at the bottom that the animals are kind of resting around, and that's also burning, that's warming the basin in which they're pouring that. So again, that whole process, that whole idea of process. What about in the Modern Witch?
So the Modern Witch, similarly to the other card that we discussed today, it's really basically exactly the same. I'm holding the two up side by side right here. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of ways, I wouldn't really be able to tell which one was which, except for a few key differences. The woman in the angelic being is clearly a woman here, but the Modern Witch deck is all women. Mm-hmm. So she's and she's a Black woman with long flowing black dreads. Mm-hmm. And that's really the only difference, except that, and then the sun does not have a crown in it. It's just the sun, which to me is like removing that hierarchical energy from the deck. So,
one thing that I find interesting, and I meant to mention it earlier, is the idea of wings, because again, we need to look at this with all our other major arcana cards. Do they all try to have like all of the elements in there, or is it just because this one is about blending, because the wings are air, right? Uh-huh. And then we have the water, and we have the earth, we have the sun for fire. So we have all of the elements in there as a part of this process, as a part of the things that you need to have this alchemical process, which they're not referencing in there. But now that we're seeing that, mm-hmm. It's there, right?
It is there. It's very much there. You're right, and I don't know the answer to that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I like psychically. Pamela Coleman Smith said, we've got to have the sun in there. We've got to, and then rider-waite, I can never remember which. No, Waite is the publisher, Rider is the thing. Said, well, we got to put a crown in the sun. Said, okay, whatever, but that whole idea of the process, and that's the part that I just totally missed before. Super, super, super cool.
Well, I'm happy to have brought it to you in this moment. It's definitely energy that I frequently return to, or am reminded of the possibility of returning to in my life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you so much. So I'd love to just say, just to remind everybody that we'll have pictures of all of these cards in our show notes. So please, of course you can always just Google them, you don't have to wait for that, but we try to make it easy for you to find those. And I would encourage you to just sit with these cards, because we just pulled out a couple of things that are meaningful to us. And I'm sure the elements that are going to be most what you need to see will probably pop out for you. So if you could take that time, I would suggest that there's going to be a lot of powerful work that you could probably do with these cards, and others as well. But these are the ones that we're talking about this week. So that's my invitation to you. So one of the things in my life is like, I believe in the sacred and the mundane. If this listener is not a normal listener, and this episode somehow made its way into their podcast feed, or they stumbled onto it,
if I was them, I would take that as like a chance to maybe there is one of these or both of these cards is calling to them in some sort of way.
Exactly. Yes. So please take if you have the opportunity, sit down with these cards or other cards of your choice and see what lessons you can learn as you go along your journey. Thank you.
We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our Witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!